So, tell me, what advice did they give you?
Wow. I have the best advice for women in business. Get your fucking ass up and work. It seems like nobody wants to work these days. So if you put in the work, you will see results.
You have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. And it's totally true. The ones that are successful love what they did so they can persevere.
Part of that is that you help them grow some teeth so that they can go home and have that fight with their husband that they should have had 25 years ago.
Work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in, 100-hour weeks every year.
If you also happen to be human, alive and living on Earth, chances are you and me both have been often given, sometimes unsolicited, shitty, albeit well-meaning, life advice. And so today I thought it would be quite interesting to break down some of the life advice which is super popular, but I'm very, very glad that I stopped taking. And sometimes I've been doing the exact opposite of what I've been told, and it's worked out better for me. So I thought it might be quite interesting to chat about these things today, and let's jump straight into it. Number one is a bit of a controversial opinion and something I feel quite passionately about, but this is the view that you should work harder so you can get what you deserve. I feel like as a society we are obsessed with kind of the American dream and building something from absolutely nothing. From The Great Gatsby to Kylie Jenner, we are absolutely obsessed with these stories of self-made billionaires and millionaires. This absolute desire and fascination for success leads us to crave a world which is quite meritocratic, which means that everyone will get what they deserve. They will get the results of the work that they put in. And this leads to some celebrities saying that the secret to success is just to get to and work. Now, I have a huge issue with this view that we live in a meritocratic society where people get what they deserve, because even though on the surface it sounds absolutely beautiful and happy that everyone would put the work in and get amazing results, but one, I think that this is absolutely impossible, and two, I think that personally when I thought that this was the case, I had a much worse experience of life and work in general. From my personal view, the equation of putting in the work and getting results looks very, very different to this mainstream Elon Musk view of if you're just doing 40 hours, you should be doing 100 hours because your competition is doing 100 and that's where they're succeeding. The people that I've seen succeed have not succeeded because necessarily they've put in more work. They've succeeded because of other reasons. So when it comes to formulas for success, in my opinion, just 5% of it is this hard work that everyone loves to speak of. This is kind of doing those 100 hours when other people are doing 40. This is staying up all night. This is grinding. This is working multiple jobs. This is being obsessive over details. This is just learning as much as you can, growing as much as you can, waking up the earliest, in the office first, out the office last. This is this grind hustle culture that everyone likes to talk about. I think that this is responsible for at most 5% of people's results in general. Just my opinion. I think the next 15% are the less sexy things that we talk about, and in this 15% would sit things like where we come from, so our ethnic background, our gender, our age, the way that we look, our potential neurodivergence, the way that we think, the unfair advantages that we have at home. Are our parents millionaires? Are we rich? Did we have to do part-time jobs while we were studying? Did we even have to study at all? Were we given work? So these sort of unfair things that people may or may not have based on their current circumstances or their life circumstances, I think affect a lot more than the work that people do, the results of what they get. The next 80% and the biggest thing that affects your results in life, in my opinion, is just complete random luck. This is things like, has the person who interviewed you had lunch yet, or what's their mood like that day? Did they get divorced last night? Because you don't know, these things are happening all the time in the background and we just don't know what's going on, but they affect our results so much. For example, if you think this isn't true, there are studies that found that judges are a lot harsher with their verdicts before lunch than they are after lunch. These things affect the results of our actions and the outcomes of the things that we apply for in life. If someone who was amazing dropped out of the lineup for the interview, you might get a job that you got very lucky to get, not because you worked so hard, but because of that, and also because someone else dropped out. So all these random things, the people that we run into, potentially sometimes we're in the right place at the right time or in the wrong place at the wrong time. All of this complete chaos and randomness in the universe and our lives, I think is responsible for so much more in the results of our success than anything else. And I think having this view that I will not get what I deserve, but I will put in whatever work that I do, and what I will get will be something completely random, because only 5% of it, in my opinion, is dependent on my work, and 95% of it is just dependent on life and things that I have little to no control over. That means that I can be a lot more humble and a lot more kind of calm whenever I get something in life. I think we've gotten somewhere with mentioning unfair advantages, and I think we recognize this even when we were younger, of saying, well, you know, he has it so easy because his parents are so nice to him, or because his parents give them so much money. We recognize this, but I think we ignore it a lot more as we get older. And also I think there's this defense mechanism to try to see our society as not having any inbuilt issues and biases, factors, which, I mean, to some extent it kind of does. So I think these do play a huge role in the results that we get, but also very importantly, why does no one just mention luck? Luck is just such a huge thing. Where you're born, who you're born to, what happens to you in your life, what kind of neural connections you get, what environment you have, the emotional, intellectual, financial support that you get throughout the life. All of these luck factors set you up for so much that we just completely neglect, and we blame everything on ourselves, or we attribute all our results to ourselves, when this is definitely not the case. Also, I'm genuinely not trying to bash people who work very hard. I'm one of those people. I work over 100 hours a week consistently, almost like for the last at least 5-6 years of my life. I put the work in, I think, as much as I can, but I'm not attributing my results to that work. I'm attributing my results to that randomness. And I get this kind of cringe inside me sometimes when I hear people say that, oh, you should just work harder. Everyone can have a side hustle. Everyone can succeed. Everyone can do what I've done. When I hear people saying this, I just wish they would be able to say it honestly to someone who is an immigrant in a foreign country where they don't speak the language properly, when they have 3 or 4 kids waiting for them at home, when they have to work so much already. I think just telling them that, oh, you can be as fit as I am, or as healthy as I am, or as successful as I am, if only you worked as much, I think is absolutely ridiculous. And it completely ignores the context and the luck that is prevalent in every single situation that we are ever in. So I feel super passionately against work hard because you're going to get results. My attitude on this is work hard. You will get something completely random because it's just dependent on your luck and whatever happens to you. But I think you should just work hard anyway. And the reason you work is not so that you get what you deserve. The reason that I work, for example, is because 1, I have to, because I have to pay rent and be a functional member of society. So I work because 1, I have to, and 2, I work because it's kind of fun. You get used to it if you're lucky enough that situations are not too bad, or if you try to help those situations along a bit, you can just get to a place where some of the work that you do is enjoyable, and that's fine. I know that this is a topic that I feel quite passionate about, but honestly, I think it's also spending so much time in hospital and seeing situations that people are in that gets me really annoyed whenever I hear this. I got here because I worked hard and you can do it too, which I just don't think is the case in every single situation. Having said that, put in the work because it's fun, but not because you're going to get what other people got, because you might get less, you might get more, but just to be mad or annoyed either way. And learning to accept whatever happens to me in life, I feel, is a great outcome from this. So yeah, that's huge rant number 1 over, and now I'm moving on to point number 2, which is the view of you need thick skin in order to succeed in life, or in order to make it your way through life. Now, I've seen thick skin and being strong praised so much, and I used to genuinely strongly believe this myself. I always thought that the thicker skinned I was and the more I let problems bounce off me, the better I would be in society. And because I'm quite an emotional and I've been quite a vulnerable person, I think in the past, I used to really want to get to the stage in life where I was like, nothing is going to affect me. One day I'm going to be so thick-skinned, anyone can say anything, and I'm just going to be so strong and it's not going to affect me in any shape or form. And I felt so bad for myself at the time, going like, oh, why am I so vulnerable? Why can I not be like these other strong people? I don't think this is true. I don't think having thick skin is a good thing. I think it's actually really bad, because if we break it down, essentially what having thick skin means is that people can say bad things to you, or bad things can happen in your life, and you just don't let it go through. You just completely avoid it because you are so strong that you don't need this. Nothing will penetrate. This is, I think, completely impossible and not the right attitude to have, because it doesn't address at all your internal world. Instead of having thick skin, I think you should actually have quite soft skin, but you should have a very strong core. Having a strong core means having strong self-beliefs and a strong support system internally and potentially externally to help you navigate life, rather than trying to avoid things or deflect things that just don't suit your worldview. So, for example, if someone were to bully me or tell me that, oh, Elizabeth, you're so ugly, or you're so nerdy, or you're so boring, in the past, this might have generally affected me a lot. And I don't think this was because I didn't have thick skin. I think this was because I just had a very bad internal world, and I strongly believed those things myself. So once they got through, they would completely take over, and I would have really bad reactions to this, which would be, I would be super depressed, or I would cry, or I would break down, or it would greatly affect my life for a month or something like this. But at the time, I was completely not addressing these internal feelings. I was trying to shut everything off and say, the world sometimes says these things, they're not true, I just need to ignore them and move forward. This is a very bad attitude to have. I think the reason that these were affecting me was not because I was listening to them or letting them get through, was because they were reaffirming a belief that I had myself. So rather than working on my thick skin and ignoring people, I should have been working at the time on my internal state. And the recommendation that I would give now is to kind of sit with that pain internally and fully lean into it, reflect on, what is this triggering in me? What am I believing? Do I actually believe that I am unworthy and unlovable and ugly and awful? Do I actually believe these things? Because if I do, I need to address those. I don't need to start ignoring them, because those beliefs will always remain there unless they're addressed. Even if we don't consciously do things, we will live our life in a way that affirms these beliefs if we internally do. I think the most healing and curing thing that I've done in my life is not build a thick skin, which I did have at some point, but build a stronger core and surround myself with people who I love, with people who genuinely care for me, with people who I can see show me that I am a worthy person. And that has helped me and cured me so much more than ignoring my problems, because no matter how much you ignore, one day something will get through, and if you don't have that strong core, you're not going to be able to deal with it. So I would say, yes, we pick up maladaptive coping mechanisms throughout our life. Yes, our skin will naturally get thicker throughout our life as we stop caring about things. But one thing that doesn't naturally happen, but we need to intentionally do, is develop our core. Develop stronger core beliefs, a stronger support system, healthier views of yourself. And this is a much better way to approach the world and approach your life than just ignoring things. And Naval says something beautiful to this effect, which is, everyone seems to think that the only way to get peace is to solve external problems, but there are unlimited external problems. You can only resolve inner problems. And this view of focusing mostly on your inner beliefs and your core self, I think, is a much healthier way to approach life and leads to much happier results in the long term, at least in my experience. The next advice that I no longer agree with is the view that you should trust yourself because you always know best and what's right for you. I don't. I just don't. I have often conflicting ideas. I often have arguments in my mind. When I can't make a decision, I will have an argument with two different sides of me. Who do I trust? I make really bad decisions. I'm the only person who's been telling myself what to do, what to date, who to be with, what degree to study, what job to take, what to say to people. Very often, this advice has been absolutely awful. So why should I trust myself blindly? Also, I change so much. I'm a completely different person to who I used to be. How can I say that I am consistently and at every point trustworthy if very often I think complete opposite things that I have thought before? Richard Feynman very famously said, the first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. Even criminals always think that they are right. Everyone thinks that we are right. This is why we have juries and law and all of these different things. Obviously, someone sometimes has to not be right, and that person sometimes is me. So I think having a more broader view of questioning myself whether I am right at times, or whether I'm making the right decisions, or whether I should trust my instincts. I lost my mind a few months ago and thought that I should leave medicine because I don't want to do this anymore. I should not have trusted myself, which I'm glad I didn't do. So from now on, I keep quite an open mind and a broader view of any instinct that I get. Maybe shouldn't believe this, maybe need to think of the fact that Elizabeth has quite a poor track record in decision making regarding herself, so let's be a bit more open-minded with this. And no, I am not always right, because no one is, and I should not always trust myself. Of course, dangerous situations, some caveats here. Yes, trust your gut instinct in those cases, but with big, rational, reasonable decisions, trust yourself, I think, a lot less. The next life advice I'm glad I didn't take is a tiny one, but it is that you shouldn't read at night because you will damage your eyesight. This is not true. I was so scared of this as a child for absolutely no reason. Now, given that I have really bad eyesight and I always have contacts in because I wouldn't be able to see my hand clearly over here without them, I actually don't think that damage was caused by reading, and even reading in low light or reading for very long periods of time can strain your eyes and can make them quite tired. It won't actually damage them. And the last view is that if you're not enjoying something or you're not overly passionate about it, then it's just not the right thing for you. This grinds my gears so much because it's been absolute torture for me. This view, Elon Musk says the same thing. So he'd said people should pursue what they're passionate about. That will make them happier than pretty much anything else. Great advice, Elon. What about the fact that I'm not passionate about one specific thing? What am I going to do? The amount of hours that I have spent trying to go through all the alternatives every time that I've kind of Googled jobs, careers, and gone through the whole list and thinking, putting myself in that position and going, would I be happy as an architect? Or would I be happy as a movie director? Would I be happy as a painter? I like these things. I like painting. I like drawing. I like medicine. I like YouTube. I like consulting. I like teaching. I like all these things. I'm not genuinely passionate exclusively about any single one of them. It will just change all the time, and it's so frustrating to feel that I'm never going to be successful because I don't have one strong passion. And this is much more damaging because it kind of implies that you should be enjoying what you're doing, and that means that you're passionate about this thing. This is not true. We do not enjoy the things that we do all the time. For example, Michelangelo complained so much that his back hurts when he was painting. He hated it. It was physical torture. I read Shoe Dog, and the guy who founded Nike was obviously so obsessed about his brand. And reading this book, everything that I was seeing, he was just complaining. He was in pain. He was angry. He couldn't sleep. He was frustrated. He was having issues with his wife. All of his jobs and everything he was doing was so frustrating. I thought, this sounds more like my work than it sounds someone who's chasing their dream. Chasing your dreams does not always look like fun. And this false expectation that once you found that secret thing that you like, you're suddenly, the skies are going to open and you're going to realize and you're going to be so happy for the rest of eternity is just not true. And also, if you don't have that one strong passion, that's also absolutely fine. You can just work on multiple things in the meantime and figure it out later. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful, quote unquote, or that you even need to be successful, or that if you're not enjoying something, it's just not right for you. So on top of that, if you've been raised by strict parents, like I was, for example, I was never allowed to do what I wanted to do when I was younger. I was made to do other things. And suddenly you're an adult and you can make your own choices and you have to figure out what you like, because how am I going to learn to do what I like when I've never been allowed to do this before? It's absolutely ridiculous. Like putting it on someone immediately. Yeah, you're free now. You can be whatever you want. What are you passionate about? Come on, become excellent at it. Let's do it. That just doesn't happen. This is completely crazy. So I think give yourself time. You're probably going to figure it out, or you're never going to figure it out. But if you're calm with it, if you're genuinely approaching things from curiosity and from trying to get better at them and trying to enjoy the moment, you're going to have a good time overall, potentially just as much or even more of a good time as you would have had if you were working on one singular passion. You don't need to be particularly excellent and the best in the world at one thing in order to be happy. You can be average at 5 different things and you will be so much happier in many, many ways. So I would say love ignoring this advice. Whenever someone says pick one thing, stick to it, otherwise you're never going to get anywhere. Nah, screw that. That's not the case. If you're in the same boat as me and you have no idea which path to take in life or what's your one main passion, but you want to keep your options open for multiple things, one thing that I would genuinely recommend is to put a name on these things, save them somewhere, and maybe they will become relevant at some point in your life. One thing that I would very, very strongly recommend that you do in the meantime is buy a website with the name of that project, because you never know when you might actually need it and when this comes to fruition. But 1 year after starting my podcast, I only got reminded to set up a website for it from Hover, which are very kindly sponsoring this video. In just a few seconds with Hover, you can buy the domain for any website that you think you might need to set up in the future. And I really, really would recommend just keeping these in the bank, because for me, for example, it only costs £10 and it's a ridiculously cheap kind of guarantee or push to make yourself do things in the future. Also, what I would recommend for this is potentially buying one for a friend or someone that you like, or someone who has had this little project that they've been considering doing. They only cost £5 to £10, so they're quite affordable, and it's such a good way to show support and to push someone along this success journey. So yes, there'll be a link for Hover somewhere in the description, but otherwise, if you made it so far, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Be kind to yourself and others, and don't believe everything you think. Thanks. Bye.